Slides, please.
Recording in progress.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is July 17th, 2024, and this is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, a full committee meeting. And at this time, let's pass it over to Ashley, full committee co-chair, to get things started.
Sure. Thanks, Dory. Yep, Ashley Schofield. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the current co-chair for the full PCCEP. I'll pass it along. Tia, how about you? Looks like you're...
Okay, sure. My name is Tia Palafox. My pronouns are she, her. I've been a member of PCCEP since 2021, and I'm the co-chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee. Thank you. And Carrie, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks, Tia. My name's Carrie Driver. I use she, her pronouns, and I am PCCEP member and member of the Community Engagement Subcommittee. I'll pass it to Devontae.
Hello, everyone. My name is Devontae Manyweather. I am a PCCEP member. Happy to be here.
Odelia, you want to go?
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Odelia Zuckerman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the co-chair along with Tia of the Community Engagement Subcommittee, and I'll pass it to Nathan.
Hi everyone, Nathan Castle, he, him pronouns, member of PCCEP and member of the Settlement and Policy Subcommittee. Good to see you all here tonight. I can't see the list of names, so if someone wants to pick the next person.
Kyle, did you go already?
I didn't. Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Robinson. I'm a member of PCCEP, a relatively new member. I don't think I've seen all of you all before, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting to work with you further. Enjoy tonight's decision.
Yeah, I think that was all PCCEP members. If city staff and related parties want to introduce themselves.
Sure, I'll start. I'm Dory Grabinski, PCCEP project manager. Thanks for being here, everybody.
I see.
I am Heidi Brown. I'm sorry I'm off camera tonight, but I'm here from the city attorney's office and glad to be here. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you.
Good evening, Mary Claire Buckley, Portland Police Bureau.
Patricia Kepler, accessibility analyst with the Portland Police Bureau.
Hi folks, Stephanie Howard with the mayor's office. Sorry, I'm on my phone tonight, so I'm off camera, but I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Brody Sargent, interim equity and inclusion manager for the Portland Police Bureau.
Hi, Samir Canal, inclusive policy manager at the Public Safety Service Area. Thanks.
I think that was all. And then all community members, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you would like to.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just jump in there. Frida Davis, pronouns her facilitator.
Thanks, Frida. Anybody else? Yep. Well, every meeting we start with community agreements. So I can go ahead and read those off again. If not, yeah, there you go. So yes, listen actively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspectives, assume positive intent, respect each other, respect the group, speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, ask questions to clarify, call out bias, and be okay with ambiguity. Great. So, great. We've got a good agenda today. Here for the full PCCEP meeting. We'll have some updates. I think we have a couple last minute ads regarding some updates that have happened this week. So that'll be great. And then I think the big chunk of the time tonight will be to review again and approve, hopefully, the PCCEP codification, the code language, and the recommendation that we would like to submit to Mayor Wheeler. And of course, we would like to take any more public comment on the drafts that we'll be discussing tonight. And then, yes, we'll go into vote after public comment regarding the drafts, and then we'll have time for open public comment on anything else that's that the public would like to speak on. So I think one of the first updates is just a reminder or an update that we do have our quarterly meeting with the mayor, Mayor Wheeler, current mayor. We've been doing these over the last year and a half or so, and Mayor Wheeler has been pretty committed to keeping these meetings to talk the recommendations that we brought through. So we will be using most of that time as co-chairs, usually it's the co-chairs who attend these meetings, as I'm currently the only chair PCCEP at the moment. We've invited folks who are on PCCEP members who are on the codification work group, if they could join, if they'd like to participate, because a big part of the agenda will be to discuss our recommendation that we'll hopefully approve and pass tonight, so that we can tell Mayor Wheeler that that is on his way to his desk. So that'll be the big part of the conversation, and I'm happy to take any input on that. And then, yeah, this past week, there was some information for the public about the updates on the community board for police accountability, the community-based accountability board. So it sounds like we've got some updates, and we've heard, and I think Adelia, I think I'll pass the mic over to you. I think you had some updates on here. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just like a brief overview, this is kind of a long process that's obviously started 4 years ago and is also very confusing to follow. So this timeline is just so we can all hopefully follow where we're at. But I don't have all the answers, but luckily Samir and Heidi are here. So if there are questions. But anyways, basically what's already happened is on November 3rd of 2020, there was a ballot measure passed by an 82 to 18% margin, creating this charter section. And this charter section creates a community police oversight board with broad parameters included in the charter, but with details yet to be created in city code. So kind of the rest of this outline we'll talk through the code and the updates around that. But this board will address administrative investigations, potential violations of law or policy that might lead to employment-related consequences, as well as changes to PPP policies. It does not address either the criminal law process, which is handled by the county, or the civil lawsuit process, which are handled by the courts and council or attorneys. And then the Police Accountability Commission, or the PAC, consisting of volunteer community members, crafts and submits their code recommendations to City Council. So that was like an 18-month process, I believe. And they handed that in September of 2023. And then between September and December of 2023, the City Council reviewed the PAC's proposal and approves its own city tax for review in November. And then the city took public comment for an additional month, and in December held a public town hall with former members of the PAC. And then there was drafting being done, and then on June 27th, the mayor's office released an updated version of the city code text following bargaining with the Portland Police Association and US DOJ feedback, and scheduled a town hall on July 15th, so this past Monday. At the town hall, the mayor's office and city attorney's office indicated that further changes may be made based on the public input if received in the next several days. So that's kind of the latest we've come to next, but then looking forward.
Let me jump in here, Odelia. So I know there are a number of PCEP members who have been kind of following this for a while because they've been on PCEP, but I know some folks are brand new to this conversation. Does anyone, I just want to give 1 second for any questions about the process or what the thing is at all, before we move on, because I think what Odelia is going to preview is or speak to next is maybe important to have sort of that foundation, understanding this is just one discussion about it, and we can have time for questions later too. But any questions anybody had about those couple of slides? Okay, cool. Go ahead, Odelia.
Yeah, and I guess to explain it in like more basic terms, there was this vote to create a board or process to see through like complaints about police and what to do about them. So then the city got volunteers to write that, and now we're in the process of the city like making sure it's legally fit and all of these other things. So yeah, but it is super confusing and I definitely still don't understand everything either. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so basically there's a few things coming up, specifically on the 29th of August. There's going to be a fairness hearing at the U.S. District Court on the proposed changes to the settlement agreement and to city code. So the court must approve these changes before the next steps can begin. On this date, the court will evaluate if these changes are fair, reasonable, and adequate. So I believe there's still some time to submit public comments by, I think, next Friday to Heidi Brown and Stephanie, and then yeah, anyways, so then possibly August 30th to September 19th, the city council has 3 weeks to approve city code changes. Upon approval of the city code, the oversight system officially exists. And then there's up to 1 year, possibly September 20th to 2024 to September 2025. The city must, after approving code, ensure that the oversight board shall be staffed and operational, and the current oversight system shall then cease taking on new work and complete any pending work. At some point thereafter, the current oversight system will finish that pending work and cease to exist. So are there any questions on this part of things? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so as we said earlier, or I said earlier, on Monday, there was a community forum on the code package for a future community board for police accountability. So that's what the board will be called, the CBPA. And some former PAC members submitted a letter which kind of detailed their like thoughts and feelings and what they liked, disliked. And so that's kind of what was read through during the forum. And then Stephanie and Heidi provided kind of comments concerning each point that was made. And then there was some time for Q&A. And so I think this is just, oh yeah, and thanks for putting the link to the forum in there. There were a few things that kind of stuck out, specifically around like in the code, specifically around bias and objectivity. There's no one allowed on the board can have a pro or anti-police bias. However, I think like that can really be up to interpretation for folks what those two things mean. And so I think it would be great to seek some more clarity on what bias means and what an unbiased opinion means. And so there also in the nominating process will be someone from the Portland Police Association, the PPA, and lots of other folks too. And then I believe the chief will also appoint someone to be on the committee. But I just wanted to kind of bring up a comment that was said from acronyms, yeah, thank you. That was said from Heidi Brown that was just kind of perhaps like alluding to some folks like or organizations like the PPA having a pro-police bias and members of the PAC maybe not having or having an anti-police bias. And I think that and there was a discussion about it and it was cleared up. But I think it kind of speaks to the fact that there are all these potential assumptions being put into this, and not to say that those comments were wrong or that I would really disagree with them either, perhaps specifically about the PPA who represent the police, literally. But I think it just made us kind of aware of assumptions people can make and people's views of police, even if they don't say those outright. And so what does it really mean for someone to have this anti-police bias? What if they experienced harm at the form of police? Does that necessarily make them anti-police, or do they just want accountability? And where are all of those differences? And then in the same vein, if someone from PPA is on the nominating committee, where does bias fall in or not fall into that? Given that maybe they do represent the police, how is that kind of unbiased? Although that's not in the code for the nominating committee to be unbiased. It's very confusing. Does that make sense to folks? Do any PCCEP members have questions about that?
I don't have any questions about it, but yeah, I guess I'm just sorry, I take that back. I do have a question, and I don't know exactly who could answer this, but just wondering because I wasn't able to make the town hall. I did watch some of the recording, but that question, I guess, of bias, is that something that's going to be dealt with the transition team? Is that question going to be more refined? Is that something that needs to be addressed at the moment, or is that something that, there's a whole process going into the transition team and the transition process? Just wondering if that's a better place for the discussion, and if Adelia, if you got a take from that.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that, but I just left something out that I wanted to mention that might help you understand that. And I think a problem could be that really there was a lack of definition for what bias means, so that if it's just bias, that feels very vague and broad and up to interpretation. So that's kind of where there could be more clarity, and that way it wouldn't lead to assumptions being made, essentially. Dory, did you have something to add?
I think I'm certainly no expert. I think I can actually answer that though, because the language about bias that was discussed that Odelia is referencing is in the code itself. So it's not an issue for, I'm sure the transition team may engage with the issue in some way, but it is in the code. So it would persist beyond that. Go ahead, Tia. You're muted.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the nominating committee. Odelia, are you talking about the PPA and so on being part of the nominations for the Community Police Oversight Board?
Yeah, basically like they're on the selection committee. But still they have to be approved by council. So that's not like the only route. They still have to be approved by council, similar to like how we were, I think.
So I
Yeah.
do have another question. So those who are chosen to be on the nomination committee, I feel like there needs to be definitely a conversation or a mini training on being transparent, because we all have biases and stereotypes individually. And
Yeah.
I definitely know that each group, there are assumptions about the different groups where I've had people ask me if we're an anti-police committee being on PCEP. So there's a lot of assumptions in the community, and it's definitely something I think to have discussions around with the community and all of us together.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like having a clear outline or understanding of what bias is and isn't will kind of help eliminate those problems from like surfacing in the first place. But Stephanie, did you have an answer to any of that?
Yeah, just one thing to add. And this is, we're going to continue to discuss the feedback that we got from the town hall, but on this particular issue, I think we can absolutely say that anybody on the nominating committee is going to have to go through the city's bias training to recognize that. And we're also going to talk with, our partners at the DOJ, our partners at the police unions, and our council colleagues about adding another position on the nominating committee from the Office of Equity and Human Rights, who may also be able to help with ensuring that discussions and any kinds of biases that might reveal themselves on any side in that process can also be sort of called out and addressed by people who have a special training in equity and bias. So I just wanted to add that that's something that we have been talking about since the forum, and there are other things that came up in the forum, obviously, that we also will be considering and figuring out. So feedback is welcome. I think what we said was if we can get it by Monday, the 22nd, I think that's the date. That would be very, very much appreciated. Then we can try to talk with folks and see where revisions can be made.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and I think it would be great for us as a committee to potentially write a public comment if folks agree or have feelings about the bias stuff, and I'm happy to kind of like take that on and start writing something, but I think it should come from all of us as a committee. I think that would be great. And yeah, that's it for me. I don't think we're taking questions from or comments from the public yet, Dan, but if you want to write or ask anything in the chat, we can try to answer that. Sorry. Did you have your hand up, Ashley?
No, I don't think so. But I guess I will say, I still continue to be a little lost on where, and I guess like where PCEP can play a role here. And if it's a comment, a public comment, I just don't know if we have enough. It doesn't seem like we have enough time to. I don't know. Stephanie said they need it by Monday. It's kind of, and I know Adelia and you and I are meeting with Jared tomorrow just to get some other background, but like I'm still confused about the direction of PCEP and any of the like interests from other PCEP members too. I think you and I have been following up on this, but it hasn't felt like a collective front. I was just, I would love to hear from everybody. I'm currently a PCEP member like everybody to say what they think about what our direction as PCEP member as a PCEP could be in this discussion.
Yeah, I think we like PCEP. I mean, I don't even remember because it's been months, but I feel like we have talked about it before, and at like our December what's important meeting, but it has definitely gotten like tucked away. And I think a large part of that is because the city was making all these changes and stuff. But I think like a public comment wouldn't be that much work. It would just be like, hey, PCEP thinks that this bias clause needs like a lot more information or to be struck. It doesn't like make sense as is. I don't think it would be like a recommendation or like needing like to go through the public input process, but just like what we as members think. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need to hear from everybody, other PCEP members, what they think we should do. If that's like that's the unifying front, that we do want to make a comment about the bias language since it is needed sooner than later. Yeah, Carrie.
I'd be supportive of making a comment, assuming that it's not bumping any other priority projects down our timeline. And I don't think we have any meetings next week, but I'm sure we could find time to exchange emails or such to make it happen quickly.
Thanks, Carrie. And yeah, Odelia, thanks for mentioning. I think I should have mentioned in the slides for those new to the discussion. This was this project was one of the priorities PCEP established at the beginning of 2024, and Odelia is correct that it's sort of been on hiatus because it was under review by DOJ until now. And so it's kind of bubbling back up because it's now back in the hands of the public, and then we'll be going to court in theory at the end of August. So yeah, that's why it's kind of coming back around now. But PCEP has been discussing this for kind of the last year and a half in some fashion. Any other comments on this? I think this is just meant to be kind of an update. It is a little bit of a background project, it seems. Tia?
I am so sorry, Stephanie. I'm confused. On the deadline from Monday, you talked about input. You wanted the input, but then you said code language, but I thought we were talking about the nomination process. So they're two different things, right?
No, the nomination process is part of the code language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the email address to drop in the chat for any other written comment, but I will also add, oh, look at Heidi's already done it. So either me, Heidi, or that DOJ comments email inbox, will be happy to get additional feedback that way as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry, Dory. Is the bias language kind of the only sticking point at the moment? Is that what you took away, Adelia? Like, you know,
I mean, I think it would be helpful to read the letter from the former members which paints like a picture of everything. But I think the bias did really stick out to me, as well as like that coupled with the nominating committee and kind of how those don't really seem to fit together. And then, yeah, there's a few other things that were mentioned that like former police are allowed on staff, but not on the actual board. There's lots of things. And I don't think we have the capacity to do all of it. So I think like the bias thing would be really important to kind of discuss. Yeah.
If I could also just say, I agreed. I think Dan put in the chat a link to the former PAC members their letter to us. I would also encourage watching the video because we responded to I think every one of those, and so you wouldn't have to wonder what the response is there. So would encourage watching that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely really helpful. The video or the letter that was written is going to be like up on the screen throughout the whole video, so you can see like what comment they're responding to. Yeah.
Devontae?
So just wanting to make sure that I am fully comprehending. So right now is kind of a space for PSEP members who did virtually attend the Monday's meeting to, I guess, express any takeaways or anything that was noteworthy to them. Is that what we're discussing right now?
Yes, and Odelia is sort of sharing her updates also based on carrying over from some past PCEP discussions about some things that stuck out. But yes, it would be a space for that as well. And then also sharing the public comment opportunity. I think that it is accurate that there isn't time because of the windows that the city is working within right now. There isn't like time to really mobilize like a PCEP recommendation around this or something. But this is more kind of in the updates section to just make other PCEP members and the public aware of sort of an issue of interest in the sort of PCEP and community policing space. And so I guess sort of the action item, so to speak, is there is still this window available for public comment for this sort of big new city bureau that will be a police accountability board that is going to be implemented soon. That's kind of a meandering answer.
Sure. Well, I mean, and this isn't really something that I feel like we have the ability as a body to do anything about. But one thing that did stand out to me is that, this entire change is to make sure that there is accountability for law enforcement. And one thing that stood out to me is that it was mentioned when there is an administrative investigation that is ongoing and an officer is to potentially completely admit to guilt or wrongdoing or not following policy that resulted in a community member being harmed or there's a loss of life as a result of that because of the Fifth Amendment right that if there is a criminal investigator that wants to access the information or statements that may have been made by that officer during the administrative hearings, that they're not allowed to access any of that information. But if this entire topic is, the sake of accountability, I don't see why they would not be able to have that information. And that's going into constitutional rights, and I understand that. But to me, that alone seems to almost, I don't want to say invalidate, but that's the crux of the issue right there. We often hear of situations where officers are put on administrative leave or suspended without pay temporarily, but it doesn't undo the situation that had already occurred as far as from a criminal standpoint. So oftentimes, members of the public are left feeling like there was no real justice being served or that there was no true accountability because all that changed was that maybe someone's not an employee of that particular police department, but they can apply elsewhere. So and that might be a really large topic that really kind of extends beyond what we have the ability to even really assess, but that was just something that stood out glaringly to me because the topic is accountability. So the transparency and I guess the free exchange of information to me seems to um, counteract that ideal or that desire. So that was just something that stood out to me.
I'm gonna let Stephanie respond to that. She probably has some relevant information.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that, Devontae. And I think it's an important observation. I think what's challenging is that this body is specifically only authorized to investigate the employment and employee discipline aspects of those cases. So, a criminal, there are Supreme Court case law and other appellate case law that dictates that a person in an employment investigation may be compelled to make statements, but that is in relation to their employer, and so that cannot override the Fifth Amendment that everyone has in any time that they are the subject of a criminal investigation. And so that is because of case law that those things are shielded off from each other. And I'm oversimplifying it, but I wanted to acknowledge what you said, and I hear that, and I want to just make sure that it's clear for for folks that are new to the conversation, or are catching up on some of this stuff. Just that this is a very discrete aspect, and it's only related to the police, the employee disciplinary piece of what happens when misconduct is investigated, and how it's determined what the employee discipline will be. So I'm happy to talk with you anytime more about any of those things, or give you cases or anything like that if you want to read them, but just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I almost was hesitant to even mention that, because I do understand that, the Fifth Amendment obviously is constitutional. But it was just something that I took away, that I noticed, that I know that we're trying to figure out what to do as far as the employment aspect, but that was just something that was kind of floating around in the back of my mind that I noticed. So I figured I'd share. Thank you.
I just noticed that both Jorge and Byron have joined. Hello to both of you. Not to put you on the spot. We can get
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Jorge. You there, Byron? Saw him come off mute. Well, hopefully we'll hear from Byron later. Oh, maybe he's there now. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for the discussion, everybody. I think yeah, I think it's a really dense topic, obviously. But yeah, and in a lot of ways we are coming back to a conversation that we've had kind of sporadically over a few years at this point. So it's a challenge for sure. But this is sort of a big issue in the city, a big issue in community police oversight and accountability. So definitely thank you to Odelia for bringing that back up in a meeting. I think at this time we definitely need to move on though to our main topic for the meeting. So we'll get slides for that real quick. Okay, so codification, just have a couple of primer slides here. Ashley, you want to go through this real quick?
Sure. So yep, we've had a couple meetings about PCCEP codification process, the process we've taken to work on the code, and also work on a recommendation that we would send to the mayor for their support of the codification plan. And so what we've been working on is the code language, which we've had the city attorneys review for us, and then a recommendation to the mayor, which is kind of just encompassing. It's outside. It kind of gives more. It gives more wording to what we mean by what we need with PCCEP. So and just kind of clarifying and elaborating a little bit more on what PCCEP. The codification would mean for the city and the relationship with PCCEP. And then the other component is the PCCEP plan, which is referred to in the code language, but the plan is essentially sort of like our governing documents. It helps us decide how we operate and how we function. And so, I think the work group, so part of the process was we're a codification work group. It was myself, Carrie, Kip, and Leslie. And then Odelia, I guess I'd add you too, because you've been joining those, and just sort of getting into getting language, sort of asking all the questions. We met again after the last PCEP meeting that we discussed this, where we went through the documents and reviewed them, and had decided that we were going to come today to vote. And we kind of asked ourselves some more questions about, well, here, I think that's the next slide. Yeah, so we kind of just asked ourselves some questions about what we really felt was important to have in the code, and also thinking about not only just what could be in the code, but also thinking about what could pass currently. So the work group, I think we were really trying to balance what realistically could we pass through in this current administration before, as the chaos is already starting to start with the transition into the new government. Not chaos, but it's a busy time for the city. It's a lot going on. And so what can we get through the door so that, I've always seen it as, once the new government starts, which I'm really excited about as a constituent, I think as PCEP, we're going to have some work to sort of build that new relationship with the mayor, right? Like, I think all of us on the PCEP on the committee at the moment have been under the current mayor. So there's just going to be kind of this other piece of relationship building. And all to say, like, we're under the city's still under the settlement. So those are the, that's what what's currently guiding us. But the PCEP codifying PCEP would then, lock us in after the settlement theoretically is completed. And this would be, sit in city charter, and this would be part of the process. So one of the things we really did want to make sure was in the code, the language itself, was the recommendation response within 60 days. That's always kind of been a key component to PCEP's influence and how we bring community input into the policy conversations. And then we added language about public safety agencies that are being recognized in the current transition. So the oh gosh, the word Community Safety Division, CSD, yeah, is, as we know, as some of you might know, was currently so basically the city has been working on the new sort of transition since July 1st, and the Community Safety Division. Is that what it is? Why is my brain blanking? Community Safety.
Yeah, the details are.
Yeah, okay. But I think that was also a big part of our recommendation. So that was kind of passed through the mayor's budget, the city's budget, which has been approved for this next year. And then one conversation we've had sort of in the public, and we've also had it through the work group, is this conversation around whether current structures, our recommendations are directed to the mayor and the chief of police. And so whether or not, because of just the transition of the new government, the conversation, should we have PCEP addressing the council? And I think one of the biggest things that we've learned, and I think the public is also aware of, is that if we do that, then PCEP falls under public meeting laws, which we all agreed currently would hinder some of the good work that we've been trying to do, which is to push recommendations through, push opportunities through for engagement. So we all feel pretty solid that the way that the language is written, that makes sense at the moment, and that as we move on, here we need to prove together that this is what we want to move forward with, and then we got to get through council. And then there's a process of going back and looking at the PCEP plan, which I've mentioned. And so that's where we could probably add a little bit more information about our process, and maybe it is we go to council. So those are going to be conversations that will continue. But right at the moment, we will pass having that actually in the code language. And then I think also there were some questions that we got from the public that we discussed about in the work group around reference to quorum and adding that into the code. And we decided that we would not be doing that, but that we could address that again in the PCEP plan, which we review. And just a reminder, the PCEP plan currently if any changes were made to that or any updates, that would have to also have an approval process by the DOJ and the council. So in itself, it's like a big process. So again, it's a next phase, it's an important phase, very much important to what we're trying to do with the codification. Hopefully we can pick that up and understand it a little bit more about what it could do for PCCEP's work for the community. So those are a little bit of a summary of what we've been talking about in the work group. And I think we've had conversations here within, this public space. So tonight, I don't know if we really talked about it, but I don't know if we wanted to read through the documents again, and then, that way we're all sort of same page. I know a lot hasn't changed. I know there's been a little bit of input from PCCEP members. So if there's this would be the moment where we would all, raise our hands as PCCEP members and add any or have any input, because this would be the document. Today, our goal is to approve both documents to move forward. Because I do want to add that getting the process into council and championing in that way is going to be kind of an uplift. So the sooner that we get, we're on the same page and we approve it, the quicker we can get it through into council. Which I think is really important given just the state, in November, a lot of things will change, January, a lot of things will change. So I think we've all talked about that. I think we're all on the same page about that. So again, I'll stop talking, but I guess maybe this is a time for any PCCEP members, if they have any sort of initial thoughts that they want to kind of speak up about now, but then I'd also,
We'll definitely pull the documents up in order to facilitate that process.
You want to do that first?
Definitely, because I think we may have some folks here who were not present the last time we reviewed these, and there have been some changes, and also that was like 2 months ago. So I don't remember every component, and this is my job, so yeah, let's definitely pull up those documents. Odelia, did you have a comment to get us started?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna make like a substantive comment, but I was just wondering if you could explain the like recommendation approval process and how we do it, just for.
Yes, so what we're going to be looking at today are the a vote to approve the code language itself, which is pretty concise, and then that sort of envelope for the code language, the recommendation to Mayor Wheeler about why he should codify PCCEP as a city program. So when we vote on things, a document, usually what we'll do is we'll kind of go through the sort of final draft, and we'll see if, we'll make any final adjustments, we'll have some discussion. And really what we're looking for is a feeling of consensus about the content that is reflected in the thing we're reviewing. It can be really easy in these discussions to get caught up in wording and, spend a really long time on word choice. But, it's, yeah, we do our best to kind of move through. And then also any like copy editing at the end, staff can do that like after a vote is held. So we don't have to worry about that. And yeah, we vote by consensus. So it's not like formal, like we don't observe like a specific set of rules. We all just ask you to raise your hand at the end, like when we're like holding the vote. But also like as we go through, if we kind of like find that we're like reviewing it section by section, I might ask, or Frida in this case, who's helping with this meeting, might ask if there's consensus to move on. And if there isn't, then, we'll spend a little more time kind of sticking with that section and trying to get to consensus. Yeah, does that all make sense? Great. Yeah, that's a helpful question, Odelia. Thank you for that. I am going to suggest that we look at the code language first. if that works for folks. This is language that has been prepared for us and with PCCEP, the work group, by the city attorney's office, because it is legal language. So we had that vetted by the city attorney's office, Sarah Ames in particular. And so, yeah, that's worth keeping in mind when we think about language and our ability to sort of edit this at this point. But we do have Heidi Brown in the meeting with us, so she can still provide that legal guidance if needed. But yeah, can we get that code document first, please? Screen share. Excellent. Okay. I'm thinking I can read through this to start, and then we can go through and see if we agree about the language or the code. All right, this is quite short. Okay. There shall be established a Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, committee or PCCEP, made up of volunteer community members to engage with Portland's diverse communities on important public safety issues related to constitutional policing, use of force, interactions with people experiencing behavioral health crises, and racial justice, pursuant to a PCCEP plan developed in consultation with the committee and community members and adopted by the City Council. The committee shall solicit and exchange information between the community, City of Portland leaders, and public safety agencies, including the Portland Police Bureau, convening and amplifying the voices of diverse communities, increase collaboration between Portland's diverse communities and city public safety agencies to improve community safety, promote transparency, accountability, and equity in public safety and policing practices in the city. Bring forward community-based recommendations to improve public safety and policing policies and practices, increase community safety and trust, and to decrease incidents of use of force, and advise the chief of police and mayor on strategies to improve community engagement around public safety. The chief of police and mayor shall respond to formal recommendations from PCCEP within 60 calendar days of receipt. The committee shall be made up of 13 members who represent a reasonably broad spectrum of the community. Committee members shall not have an actual or perceived conflict of interest with the city of Portland and shall live, work, attend school, or worship regularly within the city. Members shall be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council to 2-year terms with the option of 1-year terms for youth members as so provided in committee bylaws. Members shall be eligible for reappointment for up to 8 years of service. As an advisory body to the chief of police and the mayor, the committee shall not be a governing body subject to Oregon Public Meetings Law. In keeping with the committee's community engagement charge, the committee shall follow the provisions of that law to the extent the committee determines appropriate and so provides in its bylaws. And that's it. Any areas folks want to review, have questions about, etc.?
Could you go back to the first paragraph, please, Dory? I mean, I know we've put a lot of work and I think it's great, but I thought we had a comment in there to go beyond mental health and race. We had some other verbiage about other communities, or did that get nixed in the end?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Maybe that didn't end up getting added.
I don't think it did, and I know we're at the 11th hour, so I'm okay to drop it, but I just recalled the conversation and noticed it wasn't here.
I think there was an addition of something like an expansion, it was like beyond just like interactions with people experiencing behavioral health crises and racial justice. It was something like and other historically excluded communities.
Yeah, something along those lines. We had the correct language in there that's currently
Yeah,
used.
it was just, you know, acknowledging that PCCEP does
We're not exclusive.
work, yeah, like these two things are called out for a reason, due to the legacy of the settlement agreement, but also kind of acknowledging the expansiveness of it as well. Heidi is, I know this is kind of a challenge, but in terms of adding something like this to the code and us being able to vote and reflect that sort of language, would that be something we could comfortably commit to?
Adding that language and other historically excluded communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, let me think about it for a couple minutes while you take on other things, but
Yeah.
I'm not having any huge concerns off the top of my head, but give me a
Cool.
few minutes just to make sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, think we can move on from that. And other PCCEP members, does that addition, are you in support of that addition? I'm not seeing any no's, I'm seeing some yeses. Cool. Alrighty, any other areas people want to take a look at, have questions about, etc.?
Dory, one thing just about scrolling back up to that, as far as where you placed it, I think it would go interactions with people experiencing. Or you'd say interactions with other,
Yeah,
or you know what I mean? Just where it's going to land, it doesn't quite fit there.
yeah, it needs to be,
And
right.
we can fix that afterwards if
Okay.
that's the concept people want. Okay, I'm gonna think about it a little more, but I just sort of noticed that.
Yeah, it's
maybe there.
it's
Yeah,
awkward.
thank you.
Mhm. All right, folks. I mean, as I expected, I think there might not be a ton in terms of the code language. The work group did discuss this and, you know, try to reflect what they felt like would be important additions to things that were, you know, that could be reflected in code. PCCEP, do you want to move to hearing public comment on this draft? Are we feeling pretty okay with this draft?
I feel good with the draft and I'm fine with public comment, but I wonder if going through the recommendation might make more sense first and then public comment. I don't know how it works, but
I think it would be most prudence maybe not the right word, but I think in terms of process, we should have public comment on both because,
okay.
Sorry, everyone, I forgot to mention, part of the voting process per PCCEP's bylaws is that we hold public comment on whatever is up for a vote prior to every vote. And so if we're feeling like we're in a good place and that PCCEP is feeling ready to vote, then at this time we would move to public comment. After you hear it, if there's anything that you feel like would need reconsideration, you can revisit it. Or if you feel comfortable with what we have, then we can move to the vote. Would folks like to hear public comment?
I would. Yeah, I think that'd be Step.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, members of the public who are with us, feel free to raise your hand at this time if you have any comments specific to the code language that you would like PCCEP to consider. Go ahead, Dan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, this is Dan Handleman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm with the group Portland Cop Watch. Last time you brought this forward, I expressed concern about the use of the word collaborate, which when the community members who are suspicious of the police see that it's the PCCEP's mission to collaborate with police, it comes off with a negative connotation, even though the word itself may be neutral in in a dictionary sense. So I think that you should come up with another word or another phrase or like they will work with something like that rather than collaborate, because it sounds less sounds less ominous perhaps. So maybe you can come up with better language than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else? Go ahead, Barb.
Thanks. I know you guys have done a lot of work on this and I really appreciate it. It seems to me though that I don't know if it's an assumption that's being made or not, but the mayor has been the police commander. Is that what it's called? Not the police chief, but above that?
Commissioner.
And what's the word?
Commissioner.
Commissioner? Okay. Whichever. It seems like there's like an assumption that it's going to be that way going forward. And I don't know if that's true or not, because I'm not up on the new charter that much, but it just seems like it used to say mayor as police commander or whatever in older documents. That's it.
Thanks, Barb. I'll probably throw that question back to Heidi and Stephanie once we finish here. Mr. Barnett, did you have a comment?
No, that was an error. I was trying to correct something that came on the screen in my name and I didn't intend it.
No problem. Thanks for being here. Anybody else? Go ahead, Stephanie.
So I don't want to impede in public comment, but I figured I can jump in. One thing that I can say, so with regard to Barb's question, under the settlement agreement, the mayor is a direct conduit of information with PCCEP. And frankly, I think that has been a really positive thing. And I don't know that it would have mattered if they were the police commissioner or not. So I think, just my 2 cents, I think maintaining that recommendation to both the police chief and the mayor makes a lot of sense and helps to sort of add, ensure that leadership in the city is a source of information and connection for this group and their recommendations. And I don't know that it necessarily needs to, if it matters that they're the police commissioner or not. Under the new structure, the police chief is selected and potentially fired by the mayor. So it's a similar relationship, but not necessarily the same as a commissioner. So that's just my 2 cents on the question and whether it makes sense to keep it as the mayor and the police chief.
Thanks, Stephanie. Dan?
I'm just also, I mean, I wish I had my comments from the last time you brought this up, but I seem to remember suggesting that PCCEP write in some kind of regular reporting to the city council so that just reflecting what Ms. Howard just said, that there will be communication with the leadership, which, you know, the mayor only has a vote on city council anymore if there's a tie. So it would be really good for you to acknowledge that that you're interested in sending your information about what your group is doing to the full city council somehow. I don't know how you would write that, but that would be my strong suggestion.
Thanks, Dan. I'll quickly respond to that one. The PCCEP actually, the work group did discuss that quite a bit, and they do plan to reflect that in the upcoming revision of the PCCEP plan. That was the conclusion reached. But yeah, there is support for that idea, and we appreciate you for raising it. Okay, anybody else for public comment on this? All right, not seeing anybody. Can we go back up to the revision of the proposed revision of that word? I have a question about this revision, but before I pose it, PCCEP members, do you have thoughts about the proposed revision? Go ahead, Devante.
I definitely understand where Dan is coming from. I don't think that communication is a proper substitute. I feel like if we can't find a better substitute, I don't think that the word collaborate necessarily implies uh negative intent or anything ominous. I think cooperate would be worse because, I mean, some community members may have, um, negative experiences with, people having to cooperate with police. I think collaboration suggests, an increasing collaboration suggests that we are trying to make sure that we are trying to work to bridge the gap or divide between law enforcement and marginalized communities. And so I rather like the word collaborate there, personally. Work with, you know, is the same thing, maybe all of this is semantics to some extent, but I feel like work with and collaborating are by definition, the same thing.
Another suggestion in the chat, engagement, increased engagement with, or engagement between, might achieve a similar.
Yeah, I like engagement because I think that is the point of that, that task that's above, like a part of it, or what we do. Like, we increase the engagement by bringing forums and information and stuff like that. Collaborate, I hear what everyone's saying, but yeah, sorry, which one out of line? Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but I wanted to vote for engagement.
Devante, what do you think about engagement? Oh, Devante, did you have thoughts on engagement since you spoke on collaboration?
Oh, I didn't even realize that I had my hand up still. I think that whatever language is there just needs to make sure that it speaks to, once again, wanting to bridge the divide that's there and also empowering the community, which is why I think that collaboration requires both sides to be working together in tandem. Engagement, someone could be engaged and they don't want to be engaged. So, I mean, I think it needs to be a very close replacement for the word collaborate personally. Um, but that's just my opinion. We don't want to seem like we're trying to increase a police, a presence from law enforcement on these specific communities, I guess suppose would be how I could see it being perceived that way. So I want to make sure whatever's there emphasizes that this is a hand in hand, this is a coming together of to promote a more positive experience and interaction, a more safe community.
Hey Byron, good to see you.
Good to see you, hear you. Forgive me for my audio problems. Collectively working together to a certain goal, or you take out the last part of just say collectively working together. Could be a change of word, but engagement also is a good one that I liked as well too.
Collectively working sounds a lot like collaboration, really, to me. I also wanted to point out that it does actually say increase the original version, increase collaboration between Portland's diverse communities and city public safety agencies. I don't know if people missed the edit at the end, but it actually no longer says law enforcement. So that is maybe a more significant change. So that might be worth considering as well when we're thinking about this particular word. I think that both of these options are good. And yeah, sounds like there's a strong desire to reflect, that coming together in the ideal version of PCCEP's work. Carrie?
Just to put my vote out there, I like collaboration, even though Dan made me really think about it. But I think with the focus being on the collaboration between the diverse communities, it's not PCCEP collaborating. It's serving the role of helping the collaboration. And my second would be engagement. Communication is great too, but our focus is community engagement. So, but I agree, it doesn't quite get the working together as much as collaboration. So, but I would happily approve another if it's hung up on a word.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Can we just see a show of hands? And this is how it goes, but I understand, especially in code, words do matter when we're dealing with a document of this length. So can I see a show of hands for engagement? The word engagement. I see Tia and Ashley. And Tia, Ashley, Byron, Jorge. Okay, and okay, all right. I think engagement takes it. So engagement it will be, and I think that is a good reflection. Okay, thanks, folks. All right. Anything else people wanted to respond to from public comment? Oh, Byron, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was, correct me if I'm wrong on the wording. If we're trying to get too sensitive with the words, are the people that are going to be reading this, are they not going to know how to understand what we're trying to get across? Or does it have to be technical to this point as these measures that we're taking to put these words on together to make them understand what we're trying to get them to understand what we're doing, and the community is not second guessing us in our work or, whatever the case may be.
That's a really good question, and I really hope people remember the spirit of what you just said when we look at the recommendation next. I think when it comes to code language, being this precise probably is helpful because the elected officials, who are in office right now, may understand. But people who are in office 20 years from now may not have the same context of what we were trying to achieve if we're not precise. So I think it is for city code, I do think it is worth taking this eye to things, but I totally agree with what you're saying when it comes to word choice and some of that in terms of capturing the spirit for some of the other types of things we write. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Devonte? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Since we are proceeding with the use of the word engagement, I'd like to know what everyone else thinks about inserting the word positive in front of that just to emphasize that this is a positive engagement. It's not a one-sided engagement um, by those, public safety agencies, but that we really are trying to, I feel like that kind of more so brings back the coming together that I was referring to. And increase is a good word. I don't know if there's possibly a better word. I was thinking promote, but then I looked down and saw number 3 uses the word promote. So if we don't want to have two of them start with the same word, although I think that that would be a good word, is there another word other than increase that we can utilize there? So something positive engagement. I like promote too. I just didn't know if it reads um if it's not ideal because number 3 also starts with the word promote. But I think promote would be ideal there. But is there any other alternative other than promote that we can use to get that same point across? Encourage or foster, I think, are great. Those are, yes. Thank you. That's exactly, I couldn't find the word off the top of my head, but I think that there are a lot of other really great words we can use instead of increase.
Anyone jumping out to people? Any word? Encourage, advance, foster, enable in the chat.
Yeah, I think I'd like foster or encourage.
Folks like the addition of positive.
Not really. I don't know. I don't really think it's necessary.
Yeah, actually, well, yeah. I mean,
Are you saying it's not necessary or it's not the right word?
Necessary for the code language.
possibly also the right word. I think that it might be a challenge to I don't want to be you know, pessimistic, but I think sometimes the reality is that there are difficult conversations and those are really important, and those wouldn't necessarily always be construed as positive. I think like positive is something you could, like, different people see it different ways. Like I might personally view a very challenging conversation that's still like a healthy exchange of information where both sides learn more about each other as a positive interaction. Other people might not see it as a positive interaction. So I think it's a challenging thing to uphold because it's so subjective.
That's what I think too. I think it's a little too subjective to add particularly in this document, because I think you're right, Dory. I don't it's not that we don't want to promote positive engagement, but I don't think it's always perceived, like, I don't think engagement is always perceived as positive, and I think it's hard for PCCEP to be tied to that subjective wording when we might not, there might be times where there's, we've done this in the past where we've had meetings and it's, people have given their stories and it's not felt positive. I don't know. I just don't really I don't really like the positive vibes kind of language. So that's more of a personal bias, perhaps.
Devonte, is your hand up? I can't tell. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely I didn't think about it in that way, and that maybe we are trying to avoid certain adjectives. I do feel like can't speak for every community, but like I myself, as a black male, and just kind of seeing and observing the divide between uh, public safety agencies or law enforcement and the black community in particular. Um, most interactions, all interactions, almost to some extent.
Did we lose Devontae?
I think he must have lost the connection.
Okay. Unfortunate timing there. Hopefully he's able to get reconnected. All right.
I had a thought too, and I can't speak for what he was thinking, but I hear what, without another word in it, it's hard, but would productive be too subjective too? Like we're trying to foster engagement that isn't just for the sake of engagement, right? We do have a goal oh, he's back. Great.
Go ahead and finish your thought, Devontae. Glad to see you could rejoin.
Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, my laptop died. But I think that it's very important to emphasize that because there are communities that view any interaction with law enforcement as to be negative. That's the initial assumption from the get-go. And so really emphasizing that to those communities, I think is important because I think that with the DOJ settlement and like we said, people that may be struggling with, mental illness, and then, the BIPOC community, those are kind of the two groups that are emphasized as a result. And so I understand not wanting to use the adjective, but I think it's important to emphasize or specify what kind of engagement we are seeking. We aren't just seeking for those communities to be further policed. We don't just want an increased law enforcement presence for those communities because that insinuates, well, what is the intent? Is it truly a positive one? So I think we have to also, proceed knowing that many of these groups already assume that every interaction is negative. So yeah, I mean, that's just my thought, my perspective.
I understand now, Devontae, and I completely agree with what you're saying. I think the challenge I'm having is that that adjective would be describing PCEPs, because this is code language about PCEP as an entity. The adjective is describing essentially how PCEP operates rather than speaking to some of the larger issues I think that you're describing about how the entire system and structure of policing and would kind of like how it reflects that. So I think it is maybe not referring to that in this case, in this context. But maybe I'm just seeing it differently. Because it says the committee shall. So this is definitely referring to the way that PCEP will conduct its work.
Understood.
Things limited to PCEP's, control and scope. But I think your points are very important and well taken and perhaps are better suited for the PCEP plan, which are like a little more expansive in terms of I think some of the topics you brought up. Not sure if others have thoughts about that. Oh, Ashley?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for adding that about the PCEP plan. I think the PCEP plan is kind of where we can go put all this stuff in a parking lot. These, I don't want to call them wishes, but these are the things that I think can make PCEP empowered is in the plan. So I just wanted to note that, and I think we can get a little more in the weeds there than here in this code language. It's kind of what I was trying to say earlier about not adding that superlative and just adding, our job is to add or either, increase, foster engagement, and just kind of leave it at that.
Is your hand still up, Devontae?
Oh, no. Let me lower it. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right, where are we landing on this? What do we think, everybody?
Foster engagement between Portland's diverse communities.
All right. Can we get a show of hands on this language? Foster engagement between Portland's diverse communities and city public safety agencies to improve community safety. Okay, I think we are settled on that language. Thanks, everybody. Alrighty, and any other concerns that we want to touch on before holding a final vote on this code language? Ashley and Tia, are your hands up? I can't tell. Tia, are you asking a question? No, okay. All right, shall we move to oh, go ahead, Devontae.
I wasn't disconnected for that long, but did we decide on what was going on with the first paragraph or where that addition would fall?
Thanks for bringing that back around. Let me check back in with Heidi before I even ask. Heidi, could this be added?
Yeah, I'm not thinking of any reason why it could not be added. So I think it's fine. Let's leave it in.
Thank you. All right, and then PCCEP members, show of hands if you support this addition. The addition being adding language that says and other historically excluded communities. All right. Okay, and that gets us there for that. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, so I think now we have touched on everything we've heard about. So let's move. Let's move to holding a vote on the entire document. So is there consensus to advance this code language to Mayor Wheeler and then it will be sent to City Council for review, and they would ultimately vote on it? And raise your hand if you would like to advance this code. All right. That is enough. That is everyone, I believe. All right, excellent work, everybody. Thank you, and thank you for all of the public comments. Thank you for the work group for everything that you did to get this done, and thank you to in particular Sarah Ames for helping us draft this document. Excellent work, everybody. Okay, and now we're gonna dive into the recommendations. So this is, like, as we said, the envelope for the so basically what approving this would mean, Mayor Wheeler, if he were to approve this recommendation, what that would mean would be that he would be agreeing to take the code language to City Council. That would essentially be like what an approved recommendation would would mean in this case. And so then once he sort of leads that charge with council and raises the issue there, the rest of city council will have to vote to approve the code in order to codify it. So that's the process here. And so in the recommendation, you'll notice it's kind of the why. It's like, why should this be a permanent city program? Why should this thing exist beyond the life of the settlement agreement? Before we do that, would folks like to take a little break? Just a couple minutes, like a couple minutes here. Let's do that. Let's all step away for just 3 to 4 minutes. Let's get back here. Let's aim for like 7:38. And then jump back in. Just give people time to use the bathroom, get some water, shake it out, and yeah, we'll see you back in just a second. Okay, this is a bit longer. It's not terribly long, but for this one, I would love to not read the whole thing, but I think it is good to hear it. I think if we can make it work, it'd be nice to just like do a PCEP member round robin kind of thing. So maybe if we could have somebody start and then just pick someone to pass it on to when you're ready to do that. Yeah, if that's okay with everybody. The first person on my screen is Carrie. Carrie, do you want to get us started and pass it along?
Sure, no problem. Title of recommendation to codify PCCEP, date presented July 17th, 2024. Summary of recommendation: as the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, PCEP, continues its pivotal role in improving the landscape of public safety and community police relations in our city, we write to recommend the formalization of PCEP as a permanent city program within Portland City Code. This is a crucial step to ensuring PCCEP can continue to work long after the conclusion of the settlement agreement. I'll pass to Ashley. I think you're on mute, Ashley.
Thank you. So we're at the body of the recommendation. Yep. Since its inception in 2018, PCEP has emerged as a vital conduit between the community, law enforcement, and city officials by facilitating dialogue and advocating for meaningful reforms through robust community engagement, relationship building, and thoughtful recommendations. PCEP has contributed to advancing the goals of police reform, transparency, and community-centered policing practices. However, the work of PCCEP transcends the timeline of specific agreements or mandates. The goal we pursue and the aspirations we hold for a safer, more just Portland extend far beyond the parameters of the settlement agreement. As such, it is imperative that PCCEP's role be enshrined in city code, providing the necessary institutional support and permanence to sustain our efforts in the years to come. Devontae, do you want to try read the next part there? What? I can
Are you there, Devontae?
thought he was there.
He was.
I'm happy to read.
Okay, thanks.
Formalizing PCCEP as a permanent city program will serve several critical purposes. Continuity of mission. Codifying PCCEP ensures that our commitment to community engagement, oversight, and reform remains steadfast, irrespective of changes in administration or external circumstances. This continuity is essential for maintaining trust and momentum in the committee's work. Community trust and participation. A clear future empowers PCCEP to fulfill its duties with greater legitimacy, fostering public confidence in our ability to effect meaningful change. PCCEP knows that inclusive, community-driven processes and decision-making take time. By cementing our role in city code, we signal to residents and stakeholders and partners that voices will continue to be heard and valued in shaping the future of policing and public safety in Portland. And I will pass to I'll pass to Devontae if it's back.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Long-term impacts. The conditions that led to the settlement agreement and therefore that underlie PCCEP's work are systemic problems that require sustained attention and action. Codification ensures that PCCEP remains equipped and empowered to address evolving challenges and opportunities to help build safer communities well into the future.
Scroll down, please.
As a part of codification, PCCEP urges the current and future city councils to uphold the level of budget and staffing needed to carry out its work. This includes a program manager, coordinator, and community outreach position, as well as sufficient budget to host accessible public meetings and community engagement events. We also urge the future mayor, PPB, and other city officials to uphold and increase their level of engagement with PCCEP. PCCEP would like to recognize the value that our quarterly meetings with Mayor Wheeler have brought to the work. We strongly encourage the next mayor to maintain this dialogue. PCCEP recognizes that the inner workings of the committee will continue to be governed by the PCCEP plan, which outlines our structure, processes, and objectives. We remain committed to adhering to the principles and guidelines outlined in this foundational document, which serves as a roadmap for our activities and decision-making. Looking ahead, PCCEP eagerly anticipates revising the PCCEP plan to ensure it reflects the latest developments and enhancements in our operational framework. With recent milestones such as the appointment of an independent monitor, it is paramount that our guiding document remains current and responsive to evolving circumstances. We welcome the opportunity to engage with stakeholders and community partners in this process, reaffirming our dedication to transparency, inclusivity, and continuous improvement. Mayor Wheeler, we urge you to champion this recommendation and work with City Council to enact the necessary legislation to formalize PCCEP as an integral component of Portland City Code. By taking this step, we can ensure that PCCEP's contributions endure as a cornerstone of community empowerment in our city. And I don't know who to pass it to next.
Odelia, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So how does this recommendation redress barriers to racial equity? The settlement agreement is rooted in community organizing to redress wrongs committed by the Portland Police Bureau against communities of color. Groups like the Albina Ministerial Alliance for Justice and Police Reform called upon the Department of Justice to investigate the PPB based on AMAC's findings that at least 30% of the 61 people shot or killed by Portland police between 2000 and 2011 were people of color in a city that is almost 79% white. The recommendation to formalize PCCEP as a permanent city program honors the legacy of community organizing that led to the joint commitment to improve policing through remedies outlined in the settlement agreement. By advocating for meaningful reforms and ensuring ongoing oversight, PCCEP aims to redress these historical injustices and systemic biases. Codifying PCCEP underscores a commitment to transparency and inclusive decision-making, crucial for fostering public confidence in fair and equitable policing. This approach institutionalizes community-driven. Can we scroll down, please? Oh gosh, now I got lost.
Community-driven.
Oh, thank you. This approach institutionalizes community-driven reforms and sustained accountability within Portland's law enforcement practices, aiming to mitigate the longstanding issues of mistrust and inequity that led to the DOJ's involvement. Can we scroll again, please? How does this recommendation improve outcomes for persons with mental illness? Even beyond the resolution of the settlement agreement, the City of Portland must never forget its key premise so there can be no risk of repeating history. After an 18-month-long investigation by the DOJ, the Portland Police Bureau was found to exhibit a pattern and practice of unconstitutional use of force against individuals with actual or perceived mental illness. Formalizing PCCEP ensures that the legacy of the settlement agreement will be preserved, including ongoing oversight and advocacy for policies that prioritize de-escalation techniques, specialized training for officers, and enhanced community engagement specifically tailored to improve interactions with individuals experiencing mental health crises. And then can we scroll again? Thank you. How are marginalized and underrepresented communities, including those who will be affected by this recommendation, engaged to shape, write, and otherwise develop this recommendation? PCCEP is devoted to representing and engaging with marginalized and underrepresented communities at our very core. Over the last 6 years, PCCEP has been comprised of dozens of members who fit this description and have integrally shaped the work of the committee. We have engaged with countless community members in public meetings from Portland's many diverse and underrepresented communities and have had the opportunity to advocate for improvements that help make their voices heard. Both PCCEP members and the public have supported efforts to codify PCCEP for many years. This recommendation is a culmination of every single person who has helped shape PCCEP into what it is and will continue to be, a space for civil discourse, community empowerment, and forward momentum.
Great. Thank you all for reading that. Great job, everybody. It's nice to hear it in your voices too. Okay. So shall we start at the beginning? Anything jump out to anybody? This has not changed very much since the last time we looked at it. And if I recall, when we last looked at it, folks were feeling pretty positively about the state of it. There weren't too many revisions at that point. As someone has noted in the chat, the end section is new. Those last couple of boxes there are new additions. But otherwise, this has not really changed very much. So yeah, any initial comments, PCEP members? Areas you'd like to focus on, questions, concerns? Tia?
I liked everything. When I read in the body where I made a comment, we hold for a safer, more just Portland, until I heard it read out loud, I read it wrong. So I thought it would be, we hold for a safer, and I thought something was missing, a safer community. But then I saw when someone read it, a safer and a more just Portland. So I don't know if others read it like that, but now I understand what it means, that you want to just Portland. That's all I got confused about. Otherwise, I agree with the entire thing. Thank you.
Tia. Carrie?
Just a small request to add a link to the meeting when we talked about codification under resources at the very end.
Great point. We will do that. Anything else sticking out? Any questions, comments, things you'd like to focus on? Positive feelings. Byron?
Yes, part of it is this recommendation going to the mayor and the work that hasn't been focused on in the BIPOC or the Black community when it comes to PCEP holding forums. Just a comment of saying that needs to happen a little bit more often, because I feel like we've got caught on current events. So it's just a comment of saying that the BIPOC community and the Black community still hasn't had any type of forum at this PCEP. We have talked about the Truth and Reconciliation or that such thing, but that seems like that's took in the back burner, and we've more focused on current events and not bringing the Black community to PCEP. who can speak on making sure the police are held accountable. So that's all I had to say about that.
Thanks for mentioning that, Byron. I think that's a great thing to center, and I think we'll look to your leadership and others to make that happen. Yeah. Other comments about the draft? Anything that people think needs to be changed? Things that stuck out?
No, I felt like it generally made a strong case for itself.
Cool.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think we kind of hashed through this last month, and I think the sentiment there was that this feels like good language and good messaging, and I think really does create an envelope of like what we're trying to get across, because we couldn't put all that in the PCEP code. And so this kind of just adds the flavor. I think that makes sense for PCEP. And yeah, I think it's a collaborative document that will help us, with, I think, getting Mayor Wheeler to help champion the code change. So thanks, and thanks to the staff for helping us draft this.
Cordelia?
Yeah, can we scroll down a little bit, please? Yeah, that's perfect. I just have a comment here, and Ashley answered it, and I think like the first sentence does say, well, my question was, would it be useful to say we hope to become more engaged with like all of city council in the future as well, even though we're planning for that to be in the plan, so not like recommending that here, but if we allude to it as much as possible. And I think the first sentence does do that, but maybe we could do, I don't know if we would even need to do it more than that, but that was the one thing I thought about when I was reading through it.
Yeah, where would that be?
I mean, it's kind of like we also urge the future mayor, PPP, and other city officials. So it's kind of there, but so I don't actually know.
Any PCEP members have a suggestion or thought about Odelia's proposal?
I'm slightly unclear on what the proposal is.
Me too. But yeah, I think like we want to hopefully establish a stronger relationship with council and be able to like present more often at council meetings and just like have more folks involved, even though we're not directly making recommendations to them. But just making that kind of sense of wanting that relationship be as strong as possible without saying it, but reading it again, we pretty much do that, so it's not actually a concern anymore. I take it back.
I guess your comment is sort of like the possibility of adding an additional sentence saying PCEP looks forward to deepening our relationship with other members of city leadership, including city council members, in order to promote the important work of blah, 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 blah. Like it's sort of calling out like calling out the council relationship more explicitly. It is there like a little bit, but I think that is Odelia's suggestion if I'm hearing it right.
Oh, I like what Samir put in the chat. If other folks like that.
I don't, oh, there it is. Yeah, that captures, I think, Odelia's suggestion. PCEP members, do you support this addition here? We strongly encourage the next mayor to maintain this dialogue and the future city council to engage meaningfully with us as well. Thoughts, questions about that addition? I think I see Kyle thinking.
I think we're coming on strong. But I think we might be asking for it rather overtly, in a way that highlights that it's not, implied or given that that relationship, does have to be built and grow over time through other administrations. I personally wouldn't say it any more than we already have. Does that make sense, or did I leave anybody out of the loop hanging there?
Think I understand what you're saying, but could you maybe speak to it a little bit more?
Yeah, let me put it back in front of my eyes. Let's see. Very strongly. I'm looking for "we strongly." Can you put the cursor over it? Oh, never mind. Never mind. I found it. We strongly. I'm kind of on the fence about. I'm really on the fence about it. I'm not. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts on it, but I don't want to hold us up if this is something that.
Okay, yeah, while you marinate, let's hear from Carrie.
Okay.
I just think that it's a bit repetitive with our sentence about we also urge the future mayor, PPB, and other city officials. We don't call out the council specifically to uphold and increase. Do we want to say that we want to formalize? Are we asking specific, because bundling it with the mayor's meetings, which we're saying are specific one-on-one meetings, and we're encouraging the mayor to maintain that. Are we asking the city council to formalize our engagement? Or is that too much in the recommendation because it's not in the code and we should wait for the plan? I feel like it's an odd add-on as it is now, but the sentiment is important. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Carrie, about the bundling there. I think this revision here kind of just I agree that it's essentially covered by other city officials, but then adding a positive there saying including the future city council. Maybe that just helps get at it. Does that feel better, maybe? Tia, do you have thoughts?
Yes, and the looking ahead paragraph, I was just wondering, about engaging stakeholders and community partners in this process of having them help us with the PCEP plan? What's the process? We welcome them to engage in the process. Are they helping us revise the PCEP plan? We'll be asking for.
I'm sorry, where is that connected to the PCEP plan?
We welcome the opportunity to engage with stakeholders and community partners in this process. And I'm just wondering if we are going to have these groups help us revise the PCEP plan.
The PCEP plan is, I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's not quite an amendment to the settlement agreement, but it is sort of a part of, it's a part of the settlement agreement, so it has to be revised by the DOJ and the city. And also the amici will get a chance to weigh in on the revisions to the plan. So PCEP is actually kind of a, obviously a partner in that process, but it is not like this process at all.
Yeah.
Where we're editing the text. It's actually it's agreed to by the city and DOJ, so they'll really be handling the text, and they'll I think hear what PCEP wants and work with you on that. But there are a lot of parties involved in that revision process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the stakeholders, I see who is the DOJ, city, and the amici.
And of course, PCEP and the community, I think, are wrapped up in there too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just saw Dan's comment in the chat. Should we hear PCEP? I think we're at 8:06. Should we hear public comment and then circle back around? Great. Okay, so at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. So if you have thoughts about the content of this recommendation, things you'd like PCEP to consider, please raise your hand at this time. We will hear from you. Go ahead, Mr. Barnett.
Good evening and thank you very much. I haven't spoken very much, but I definitely want to commend all of you members of the committee and the hard work you've done and the serious thought you've given to such an important process and hopefully an outcome that will have meaningful impact on how public safety and law enforcement is handled in the future. As most of you know, we continue even to this very day to have serious problems about overuse of force by police over and over again. It's still going on. I mean, it isn't like it's just all of a sudden over and everybody's kumbaya and all's good. No way. And so I say that as preface to saying it's important not only for the codification of PCEP, which absolutely is critical and crucial, because anybody can tell you any kind of story that they want to tell you that all is good, the police are better. No. The pattern of police brutality and murders have been going on for years. You think just like this kind of process, just all of a sudden wave a magic wand and it's over? PCEP continuity is absolutely critical. And now I'm finally getting to my point that has to do with all of this. We are under a brave, different, new opportunity in terms of municipal government. There's not that many cities that have this kind of a process where they have the, you ranked choice voting as well as people from districts. Listen, let me just tell you, I'm validating what I'm saying on the basis of the fact that I am 87 years old. So I have been in Portland a long time. And I know for a fact that over and over again, waves of interest come and go, come and go, come and go. So now that we're changing the governmental structure, it is not useless or waste of time or anything to repeat what several people have mentioned about, well, maybe we should say something more about our articulation and our relationship with the rest of council, because believe me, in politics, you will be forgotten tomorrow unless you formalize something and get it plugged right in. And now is the time to do it. I mean, if you don't do it now, it ain't going to happen. Believe me, believe me. Politics move on and moves on. New elections happen. New people are mayor. New people are on the council. And remember, we got a whole new political structure. So I appreciate, applaud what you said about maintaining a constant contact with the mayor's office, whether it's Wheeler or not. That's key. But also key for you to have, remember, the new council will not be focusing on bureaus per se. They will be focusing on policy issues. If not what you're doing a major policy issue, I mean, rest my case, please. I don't have the words, but please, somebody construct some language that reinforces what you have already alluded to about the relationship of PCCEP and the regular city council. You got to reinforce that. It doesn't hurt to repeat it. I mean, because this is a whole new world. Remember, all these new councilors are going to learning their roles, what they're going to be doing, what responsibilities they was having. And if you ain't right in there with your oar in the water, right from the get, you'll be forgotten tomorrow. Thank you. Sorry for the for all the preaching, but I just got a lot of passion about this stuff. I'm sorry.
No, we really appreciate your wisdom and for being here and putting that all in perspective for the group. I know everyone here appreciates your comments tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Barnett. Babs? Are you there, Babs?
Oh, there. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Barnett, I applaud and am in awe of everything you just said. I could not put it into better words than what you just did. Sir, you've got me by 11 years. I'm 76, but I've also lived in Portland my whole life. And I did put in the chat that the notion to repeat as many times as possible, because Samir suggested something, and it has to do with encouraging, I would say, keep their feet to the fire, the new mayor and the 12 new city council members to continue to foster everything that PCCEP is wanting. And yes, the current mayor, who we all know is really concerned about his quote unquote legacy, the current mayor will probably be able to get what PCCEP suggests approved. However, it's the new mayor and the 12 new city council members that all of us who are passionate about changes in our city, changes in the police department, changes in the brutality that has gone on for decades. It's up to each of us to make sure we hold those city council members' feet to the fire. So, and I don't care, honestly, to tell you the truth, if things are repeated more than once in this document. I think we know, I certainly believe that most people generally have a pretty short attention span. So as they're reading through a long document about this, If we repeat certain things, maybe they'll go, oh, yeah, I think they said that earlier. Great. Because maybe they'll really hear it and take it into their heart the second time. I'll wrap up here. The other thing I agree with Mr. Barnett about, and I've told you all this before, he acknowledged the dedication, the commitment, the hours and hours and hours that all of you have put into this work. That is not going unnoticed, particularly by those of us who've lived in Portland for a really long time. So thank you. We don't give up. We keep marching forward. And we hope, I'm cautious, he's raising his fist there. I'm doing that too. I'm just not showing you myself tonight. We don't give up. We cannot give up. We will keep this moving forward. Thank you again to all of you. Phenomenal work. And I know it's not done. We will continue to pursue this. Thank you so much. Bless you all.
Thanks so much, Babs. All right, any other public comment? I'm not seeing any more hands. Great, peace up. So I think we've got around, 10-15 minutes left here. We'll try to move to a vote before then. So based on the comments you heard, is there anything you would like to revisit? Any changes you'd like to make? Any final questions or comments from the PCCEP? Carrie?
Thank you. No changes. I think it's a solid document, but I would not to delay the vote tonight because nothing substantive would be changed, but I'd like to maybe revisit it before it gets published to make it a little easier to digest because it's a complicated subject and in some areas, to Byron's point earlier, about making things accessible. Not just to any one community, but to make it a little bit less, I don't know, complicated speed. Some of the terms could be simplified. That's all.
Sure. Yeah. I think we could copy edit for accessibility in terms, especially when it comes to the references and specific terms, I guess. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, I think that is a good point.
That's great. But otherwise, I think it's a solid document and no changes.
Great. Other PCCEP members? We heard some really resounding support from the public comment, which is really nice to hear.
Nothing that I think would be super impactful tonight. Definitely will be continuing to look over this some more. I look forward to being able to potentially revisit these in the future. The codification we already voted, but I do want to reiterate, I do feel like that is something worth potentially taking another look at. Once again, I know that that's already done with, but I just want to emphasize that it only takes one side to engage. It takes two or more to come together to collaborate. So I feel like that's something that we can hopefully revisit because I do think that it does have other implications to certain groups. And so, and granted, it is language for the committee itself and how we want to operate, but I think that as an advisory group, we should be wanting to operate to create something that is not seen as negatively impactful for any group in particular. We want everyone to be able to take a glance at the language and not feel like it raises negative emotion or experience. So, but other than that, I think that this document here, I think is great. I think that public sentiments and comments reinforce that.
Thanks, Devontae. Any other PCCEP members prior to moving to vote on this document? All right. I'm not seeing any last comments here. And so I think at this time we can move to a vote. And this vote is to approve this recommendation to be sent in tandem with the code language to Mayor Wheeler. So at this time, please raise your hand if you would like to approve this recommendation. Great, very good. All right, I think that is unanimous. Congrats, PCCEP. That is a super big project completed and really exciting development. So great job, everybody. Really, really great work. Very exciting. Awesome.
And
oh, Nathan is your hand up just from the vote?
Yeah.
Ashley, did you have something?
yeah, and I know we've talked about this in the work group, but do you have any updates on what the next steps are? So that we'll send the recommendation to the mayor of the 60 days. So to confirm, like, are we going to wait for him to approve the recommendation and then assume that his office will move us into the council agenda? I just wanted to know if there's any updates on that process.
My understanding is that an approved recommendation from Mayor Wheeler would necessitate that sort of response. But I'm gonna pass that to Stephanie, who could speak to that more directly.
Yeah, in terms of process, it will be up to the mayor's office to move it forward in council. So that would, mean providing other council members the opportunity to review the proposal, to provide feedback. Obviously, the mayor will have to submit a response to you all within 60 days on what his position is on the recommendation. But yes, assuming that he accepts the recommendation and is going to bring the code language to council, it will be completely within the mayor's office to take that responsibility.
Okay. Great, that's what I thought. So thank you for clarifying that for everybody else.
And so I think that would essentially mean, Stephanie, you would be, and as you always are, but PCCEP's liaison on this issue and in bringing forward that the issue to council and that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yep, and communicating the date for the council hearing and making sure that you all have the ability to, to be present, to make a presentation if you would like to at council, etc. So, yep, I will be the point of contact for all of those steps once the recommendation is considered by the mayor.
Thanks, Stephanie. Great. Okay, so I think now we can move to open public comment. So this is the time of the meeting where if anybody here, including PCCEP members, have additional comments they'd like to share that are unrelated to the agenda of this meeting, or if you had more to say about the agenda of this meeting and just didn't get a chance to yet, you can also share those thoughts now. So feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you. Go ahead, Barbara.
I'm so happy and relieved to see this was just done. Thank you all.
Thanks, Barbara. Great to see you. Dan?
Hi, that was very quick. That was Barbara Boczynski, who's a member of Portland Cop Watch. Hi, Dan Handelman again. And first of all, I asked a question last week about whether the compliance officer's final report, which on which comments are due by the 30th of this month is going to be on your agenda. Obviously, it wasn't tonight. I'm not sure if it'll be on next week. They are not able to work past July 30, so the comments won't lead to any changes, but they can publish them and send them to the monitor. So I'm hoping that at least there'll be some chance to discuss it with you all. And obviously that also can be part of any presentation to the judge where there's an overlap between that and the fairness hearing on the 29th of August. My recollection regarding the oversight system is that the committee granted authority to co-chair Pastor Wisner to speak in support of the PAC's recommendations to council, a lot of which got wiped out by the city when they wrote the new version of the code. I'm hoping that you might consider, although there's only a few minutes left in the meeting, empowering the co-chair of the whole committee and the co-chairs of the settlement agreement committee to just weigh in on, at the very least, the one part of the code and settlement agreement that you fixated on about the bias language. And I will point out again what I said in the chat. There's a lot of language already in the code that says that the members have to make votes that are impartial and fair. So adding that they can't be biased is unnecessary, and it's just going to create problems and lead to litigation against the city. So I hope that you'll think about doing that before Monday so the council can fix that before it goes to the judge. The timelines they've given us are unreasonable to review these. The documents came out in between your meetings, so you didn't have a chance to review them. I went to the Behavioral Youth Health Units Advisory Committee meeting last week, and they apparently did have a presentation about deadly force that they were supposed to be getting as per the settlement agreement and the DOJ asking them to do that. It was supposed to be posted online for people to look at, and it wasn't. But they said they were going to fix that. But if people want to see that, it's about deadly force incidents that involve people in mental health crisis. There's a lot more to that, but I'll leave it there. I'm going to wrap by saying I've been looking at closed captioning tonight. I heard you all say, well, most of you anyway, say PCCEP very clearly, but the transcript is only picking up the PCC part for some reason. But it's definitely better than it was before when you're saying it as a word. So thank you.
Odelia?
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that up, Dan. And I don't think I was here when Pastor Wisner made a comment on behalf of PCCEP in support of the PAC, or maybe I was, but I don't remember it. But I think, yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it back to that, and it builds perfectly off of Dan's comments that I do think it's an important thing to consider, and maybe like just writing a public comment, not going through this whole process of the recommendation because we just don't have time for that. And I know that that's like asking a lot of members and like our time and weekend because they're wanted by Monday, but like I would be very happy to put a lot of time into that. And yeah, so if other folks, I sent an email about it this morning, maybe. So if people just want to respond there with their thoughts, because this meeting is over, I would love to hear what everyone else thinks, just because we didn't get to talk about it as much as maybe others would have liked. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I have.
Just to add one tiny thing to that, you of course are able to submit public comment identifying as individual members of PCCEP. You don't need group consent for that. You can do that for anything at any time. What you do need group support for, consensus for, consent was the wrong word there, is to submit comment on behalf of the group, which is something certainly that we do in certain cases. It's also like PCCEP's policy for engaging with the press. So I think Odelia is expressing an interest in potentially submitting a group comment, perhaps that she's interested in drafting and then maybe others would sign or something along those lines. I think that could be something coordinated over email if people are interested in that. And if you are not interested in supporting it, I think that is also fine. And I think you could just not sign the document or, you know, yeah, I think that essentially is what it would be, is that it would be a statement from these PCEP members or something like that. So yeah, just clarifying there. Cool. Alrighty. I think we are at the end here. So just real quick. Oh, no, Barbara's hand is not still up. Okay. Ashley, I'll just hand it to you to close this out here.
Yeah, no, that's great. That was a really good conversation. Thanks everyone who was able to come out today.
So is Barbara not going?
Oh, I think her hand's just still up.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, sure. Great. So yeah, that was great accomplishment. Definitely still some work to do to get us to the finish line, and then obviously looking into the PCEP plan. So thanks for everyone's comments tonight. We'll continue the conversation as the process goes along. And then so yeah, coming up next, our next meeting will be August 7th. Is that right, Dory? Yeah, okay. I thought
it is right. Yeah, it is right because we have folks out of town for our co-chairs who will be leading the remainder of the meetings this month. So
okay, well, just FYI online in the events list.
Yeah, we're getting things updated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. I looked at it this afternoon, and so great. Okay, so then settlement and policy subcommittee, they will meet on August 7th. And so look out for that agenda. I think that's it. Yep. And as always, here's some resources to reach out to us and to send us any other comments. And I think that's it. I think that's it for the night.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for all your work tonight. These meetings can kind of be a little bit of a slog sometimes with the document review, but they're so important. So we really appreciate you, especially on a hot night. But yeah, so the time is 8:31 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Dory.